This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
They are going to like
I
Blake
hate
Corum.
it, and I hate this part about you. Get over it. Running backs
you
don't
hate
matter.
That I wanted
Running
us to
backs
do our
don't
job.
matter.
It is
they
our
don't
job.
move the needle.
It is our job
There's
to
one
talk
running
about.
back in the league that matters, and it's Christian McCaffrey, and he's not on your team.
Bijan
Get
doesn't
over it.
Dude, I think I listened to that segment like 4 or 5 times when I got home that day.
It sounds
That
like
was great.
It sounds so much worse just listening to the audio than like it actually is. Like it sounds like I'm so angry at you, which I was a little bit, but not like in a personal way. That sounded like I wanted you to die.
You were a little mad at me. No, you were a little mad at me in a personal way.
That sounded like I wanted you to cease to exist. And, that we just... I don't know if we necessarily disagree on the running backs thing. I think that you just look at it differently in that you have to cover all your bases of what they might do, and I just have no interest in talking about running backs. Like I think that's the difference, right? Like I can't even bring myself to talk about running backs at the top of the draft, even knowing that it's a possibility like Jahmyr Gibbs last year.
Whereas I would rather just get ahead of it and have the discussion, and then if it does happen, you've already had that discussion.
No, I can't give it credence. I can't give it. I'm sorry.
Blake Corum looked good this week.
Did he?
He did.
Did he?
The rest of the offense didn't.
Oh God.
He did.
He's fine. The other running back is like
Donovan Edwards.
They're the same person.
So he's a day 3 pick projected.
Yeah, right, but
maybe that's your guy.
It doesn't change.
Are you going to be a Donovan Edwards guy?
I'm a look at the two examples here with Michigan, and both of their running backs run the ball well because they don't matter. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if it's this guy or that guy because they have really good blocking and they have a really good offensive line, and whoever gets the football is going to gain yards on the ground. That's the way you look at that offense to me. We're going to talk a little bit of college football here today. We are. Are you ready? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
We're going to talk some college football. I did spend the bye week. This was a good bye week. I not just because we got to have a weekend off and that was nice, but in general, this was a bye week that I feel like was informative to me in a lot of ways because during the season you don't have a lot of time to watch other teams, to watch college football, like things like that. So I was able to digest a lot of some of the narratives, some of the coaching candidates that we're going to talk about here today, the head coaching candidates around the NFL, and some of the quarterbacks in the draft next year. So that's where we're going to start. We are going to take a break in the second hour for Mac Jones's press conference, which is scheduled for around 11:15. So we'll take a brief break at that time. Alex and I are going to listen in and digest, and then we'll come back and we'll break down what exactly the quarterback said. I can't call him the starting quarterback because we don't know who the starting quarterback is.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
It's a weird week for the Patriots in that respect. But we're going to get to the Giants. We're going to get to the quarterback situation. We got plenty of time to talk about that. If you want to join in, 855-PATS-500 is the phone number. webradio@patriots.com is the email. If you want to weigh in on the quarterbacks, you want to weigh in the discussion that we're about to have about outside the building, what's going on. 2 things I want to talk about with coaching candidates, and I think some people are going to hear this, and I can already hear why are we running Bill out the door? You don't know if Bill's not going to be here. That's true. So this is just exploratory. This is just in case we're in this position in January. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the guys we like.
I'd even say this. There's been a lot of smoke about Bill Belichick potentially moving on. You've heard a number of people in the media talk about it, and it's not even necessarily saying Bill getting fired. Maybe Bill wants to move on.
Maybe.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm a genuine believer of that. In that.
Yeah.
So it's
whether it's fabricated smoke or not. There's reason. They're 2-8. There's reason to think that the coach's job might be in jeopardy.
Right. And on top of that, we like talking football philosophy on this show, and I think where this conversation is going to go is just it goes beyond the Patriots into deeper football philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Monday, I spent some time watching some of the offenses, the trendy offenses around the league. I did spend some time watching Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. I managed to keep my pants on during that. That's just poetry in motion. But I also watched a lot of the other offensive coaches that are going to be discussed in this coaching cycle. And I think some of them are really interesting. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that you look at is that some of these guys, Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, these are some of the names we're going to talk about. A lot of these guys, Alex, are really inexperienced.
Yeah.
Like, they've only been doing it for a couple of years. When I say doing it, I mean like coordinating, calling plays.
Coordinator level job.
Yeah, it's really been it's an inexperienced group, but I think what people are realizing is that guys like Ben Johnson, guys like Bobby Slowick, guys like potentially Brian Johnson with the Eagles as well, those guys are going to be head coaches at some point down the line. So whether, maybe you have some growing pains early on as a head coach because they haven't really held that responsibility, but at some point in time, you just got to jump on the bandwagon. And I look at guys like a Mike McDaniel or even a Kyle Shanahan who had to kind of learn on the job a little bit about the head coaching aspects, the CEO aspects of running a football team. But they're such a Sean McVay. They're such great offensive minds that the teams hired them early, probably maybe a year or two before they were ready, and they let them grow in the position. I think there's something to be said for that. So you start with Ben Johnson with the Detroit Lions, and Jared Goff did not play well in that game on Sunday. Threw a bunch of interceptions. They did not play well until the fourth quarter of that game. I thought the things that stood out from Ben Johnson to me were actually in the running game. It's a really diverse running game. They do a lot of different things in terms of entry points for the back. Like they threaten the edges, they run it up the middle, gap schemes, toss plays, zone schemes. They ran a really cool handoff to Amon-Ra St. Brown at an empty. Like there's just a lot of different things that they're able to do in the run game that gives defenses so much to think about. That even though their pass game, I wouldn't say the pass game is really revolutionary. By most of their concepts are pretty standard, traditional drop back pass game type stuff. But they give you so much to think about in the run game that I think it does overwhelm defenses with, keys and eye manipulation and all those types of things. Because at the end of the day, and a lot of these offenses, I think, hold this true. At the end of the day, Jared Goff wants to throw in-breaking routes. He just wants to throw slants and digs. Like, that's all the guy wants to do. And I think what Ben Johnson does a nice job of is opening passing windows to allow Jared Goff to access those parts of the field without much resistance. And that's where a good offensive coordinator comes in. And I think that that's just my general takeaway of watching all these offenses is how many offenses open up free access to things at the intermediate level. And I mean by that is that they move the linebackers in the second level of the defense. They stretch them out and they move them out of these passing lanes so that basically you're just playing pitch and catch a lot of the time. And there's nobody underneath the route to threaten a pick or threaten a pass breakup or something like that. So this wasn't necessarily the game to be really impressed with Ben Johnson, right? Like, Jared Goff, I think, threw 3 picks in the game or something like that. But
you know what?
Schematically, you can tell that they're really fundamentally sound. They have a really diverse running game, and it seems like the quarterback has answers. When blitzes happen, when defensive movement happens, Jared Goff more times than not has answers.
And honestly, I would say even within that game, for me, what's my critique with all these coaches is that they can't manage a game. They're all one-note coaches, and if what they want to do doesn't work, they just kind of throw their hands up and say, well, I guess we're not winning this week.
Yeah.
Their initial game plan didn't work. He adjusted out of it. They still won the game.
Yeah.
Not a lot of young coaches can do that. Now, I mean, some of that is obviously on Dan Campbell as well, and I think Dan Campbell's an excellent coach. I know you probably disagree with me.
Oh, God. But in what sense?
Most of them.
Motivation? Sure.
I think motivation...
I don't think he has anything to do with what they do schematically.
I love his game management.
Okay.
No, schematically, offensively, it's all Ben Johnson. I would agree with that. But
Yeah.
I think that Dan Campbell's a guy you can win because of, not just win with as a head coach. But yeah, no, the thing I like about Ben Johnson is he takes a lot of these new agey things that you want, like you Evan want.
True.
And he kind of he turned them into like a smash mouth version. Like he took, it's not really the Niners, it's more the Rams.
They're a smash mouth run game.
He took that Rams kind of West Coast Shanahan-y thing and he made it punch in the mouth football.
Yeah.
And I love the marriage of those. Like, literally, it's if me and you put together an offense, 50-50, that's what it would look like. So, naturally, we're both going to be a fan of his. I like the way the team's put together. I would say, too, with the Rams, I think, because the GM conversation becomes a part of it, too. We got like Ray Agnew, who was with the Rams, helped build some of those Rams Super Bowl teams, now is in Detroit.
Yeah.
You look at the receivers they have, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, the tight ends they have, just the way they've built their roster, those in-breaking routes, attacking the middle of the field, they've built a roster that can do that.
Yeah.
You said it's not overly complex schematically. Well, what they did was they have very specific roles, and they found guys who excel at that one specific thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's how you build a football team. And it sounds easy. Apparently it's not, because not a lot of teams do that, or not as many as you would think do that. So the ability, I think the way that Agnew, Campbell, and Johnson all worked, and I'm blanking on who their GM's name is because I was so like, it's Chris Spielman, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just so locked in on the guys who are available. But the way the front office and the coaching staff works together to basically be like, this is the offense, these are the roles we have in mind, go get us players that fit these roles, and then the front office's ability to execute it and go get the players that do that. That's what you need to be emulating. The Lions have done a great job of, there's a vision, and they found the exact pieces to build that vision.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think Jahmyr Gibbs really is starting to fit
great
into
example
that,
of
because they have David Montgomery, who is the between the tackles power back, but they needed somebody to stretch the field, not just downhill but also horizontally.
Right.
And they ran that toss play on the goal line last week where Gibbs just outruns the defense to the pylon, and you have to have that element to your offense. And I think that they do a really good job of threatening every blade of grass horizontally. And I think a lot of these offenses, not that the Patriots don't try to do this, they just don't have the team speed necessarily to execute it. But a lot of these offenses, I feel like that are humming, that are playing at a really high level. It's not so much the vertical stretch of the field that's making it threatening. It's the horizontal stretch of the field. They use the entire width of the field to really stretch out defenses and create, whether it's rushing lanes or passing lanes, just to create space to access the field in different entry points. And I think that that's a big thing for Ben Johnson. The last thing I would say on Ben Johnson that I was really impressed by is kind of to your point. I think that he uses Amon-Ra St. Brown extremely well. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a really good receiver, but he's not a prototypical number one X or a number one, big time like Jamar Chase type receiver.
He's a slot guy.
He's a slot receiver. He's very much like the Patriots slot receivers of the past, a Welker and Edelman, somebody like that. And they do a great job of finding him matchups, finding him ways to run his routes, because he doesn't have this like wide variety of route tree where he can win on several different levels of the field. He's a first or second level guy, right? He's an intermediate or a short type of guy, and I would say that Matt LaPorta is kind of the same way, and they're able to really use two slots, in whether it's 3x1 or it's 2x2, and get both of those guys a lot of matchups, which I think is the name of the game nowadays. The game is now about speed, space, and matchups, right? Like that's right. It's 7-on-7 football. And that's where I think a lot of these offenses are headed. Last thing on the Lions, I do think that it's worth pointing out with Detroit, their offensive line is tremendous. Yeah. I think they probably have, it's definitely top 2 or 3. San Francisco's line, the Eagles, like those lines are really good too. But the Niners, the Lions, you watch that line. I mean, what an absolute monster line that is. And, a guy like Penny Sewell is just playing out of his mind right now.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Flashback to the 2021 draft.
Yeah.
The Bengals, and remember, they had all that trouble protecting Joe Burrow the year before. They took Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
That was a debate at the time.
Sure was.
For any team.
Remember the meme?
No.
The meme where it's like Joe Burrow on his butt and Jamar Chase wide open, or Joe Burrow protected and throwing into like a tight window like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, fast forward to this year.
Yeah.
We are going to have a similar. I think I know people get annoyed by this because they think Marvin Harrison Jr. is just such an elite prospect. I'm not saying he's not. What I'm trying to tell you is Joe Alt is the same kind of prospect, just a tackle.
Right.
Which I get it. It's not as sexy of a position. That's going to be a real debate this year. And I, for whatever reason, I thought it was the Lions that made that choice, not the Bengals. I had the order mixed up. But, like, if you're talking about that Lions model, let's say Ben Johnson is the guy.
Yeah.
Are you looking at Marvin Harrison or are you looking at Joe Alt? Because Ben Johnson, he's probably going to push for Joe Alt because that will help the offense more mirror the group he had in Detroit.
I am starting to come around to the fact that if it's not a quarterback, it should be Joe Alt. Mainly because if you don't have a quarterback that can get the receiver the ball, and you don't have an offensive line that can protect the quarterback to get the receiver the ball, then what's the point of drafting the receiver?
I think your Garrett Wilson comp is excellent.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They don't have an offensive line in New York, and they don't have a quarterback. So poor Garrett Wilson's just out there wide open all game long with no ball, right? Like, so what's the Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a great pro. He might be a Hall of Famer in this league, but if you can't get him the football, then I don't really understand what the point is of drafting him.
Yeah, I got ripped for this take last week, and I kind of backtracked on it because so many people jumped on me. But like, again, it's not anything against Marvin Harrison.
No.
And I get the Patriots need a wide receiver, but it's just if that's the kind of offense they're going to build, the offensive line has to come first, period.
Yeah.
That's just the way you build that team. If you don't want that, then you're somebody who probably shouldn't be as interested in a guy like Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back, and I know that this is the Joe Walsh stuff from the 80s Niners and things like that. I don't put a ton of credence into it anymore because the game has changed so much. But one of his big philosophies was that the receiver is the last piece.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you need the quarterback, you need the line, and then you go out and get Jerry Rice. Like, you don't get that guy until you have all those other pieces in place. I think the Bengals are an example of maybe not doing it in that exact order and having it be successful.
But also, have they won a Super Bowl?
But I mean, they were like a couple plays from a Super Bowl.
But
they have a franchise.
You don't
quarterback.
give me that. I was going to say you don't give me that one with the Niners. So.
But they don't have a franchise quarterback.
Right.
The Patriots don't. The Bengals. Joe Burrow is special. Right.
Yeah.
Like Joe Burrow is that guy. He's that dude. So. In some ways, he covers up for the fact that their offensive line wasn't elite. And then it did eventually cost them in the Super Bowl.
Well, and that's why also, to your take, and I would agree, you said, if not a quarterback, then Joe Alt.
Yeah.
So we're not putting Joe Alt 1-1. We're not putting Joe Alt at the top of the board.
Okay. So next coaching candidate that's caught the eye for me.
Okay.
You already know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really intrigued, excited about Bobby Slowick in Houston. I think Bobby Slowick is going to be a offensive mind to deal with for the next decade in this league. Two reasons why I love Bobby Slowick. One, so DeMeco Ryans gets hired by the Houston Texans from the 49ers.
Yep.
This was the guy he brought with him from San Francisco to Houston to run the offense.
Yeah, he was the passing game coordinator in San Francisco.
Right. So he was to the Niners similarly to like Mike McDaniel in a lot of ways. McDaniel ran the run game. Slowick was running the pass game. And then obviously Kyle Shanahan was the big guy in the big chair. So what I like about it is that, McDaniel made the jump from run game coordinator right to head coach. Slowick is at least getting experience calling plays away from Kyle Shanahan
as an OC,
and is having success doing it. I think what you love so much about his offense is that he has C.J. Stroud playing like a franchise quarterback right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's the quarterback development.
And that has really stood out, that he emphasizes some things I think are super important for young quarterbacks. The one main thing that I think he's really good at is that he understands that the quarterback has to be protected when he's a rookie. Like, you can't get the quarterback as a rookie cannot be expected to manage a bad offensive line. Like, that's just not, it's not in the repertoire for most young QBs. There's too much to learn. There's too much with protections that they don't know yet. They haven't seen things up front that they are not going to be able to see it pre-snap to be able to protect themselves. So he emphasizes a lot of 6 and 7 man pass pro. He emphasizes a lot of quick game. And his whole thing is just, we're going to turn this into practice for CJ Stroud, where he's going to have a pocket. He's going to be able to go through progressions. And when we do take shots down the field, we're going to make sure that we're loaded up and make sure that he's protected. I also think what he's really good at is that he has designed a lot of rules within the offense to allow CJ Stroud to create in second reaction extended playground mode, where he's harnessing it so that Stroud isn't a turnover machine. And I know he turned the ball over a little bit last week, but in general hasn't been a turnover machine, but he's still allowed to make plays with his legs and extend plays and then make throws on the move like he did to Tank Dell last week.
Yeah.
So if
Tank Dell can play.
Yeah. If you're thinking about, and we're going to get to quarterbacks here in a second.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about a guy like Caleb Williams, I think that Slowick has done a nice job of combining the Shanahan tree concepts that they're running in Houston with also allowing CJ Stroud to play a little bit out of structure, which you have to do with a guy like Caleb Williams. I just think that he's got a really good feel for making it easy on the quarterback as much as you possibly can and nurturing a young quarterback. Stroud is putting up great numbers. He's playing really well. I'm not taking anything away from the fact that CJ Stroud might just be darn good, and that could be a lot of this. But I've been really impressed with how Slowick has gotten him from point A to point B.
Well, I say this all the time. Even if Stroud is naturally good, you still need a coach who's able to, I mean, nobody's perfect at everything. You need a coach that's able to identify what he's good at, and build the offense around that, and Slowick's done that. The other guy, like, I'd be really interested if they hire Bobby Slowick, of having Gerard Johnson come with him, who's the quarterback coach there.
Yeah.
And that duo.
Yeah.
Because I think Gerard Johnson deserves a lot of credit in this as well, obviously, as the quarterback's coach for what C.J. Stroud's doing. Do they each bump up a spot, and Slowick is the head coach and Gerard Johnson is the offensive coordinator? I think you can't not be impressed. And this is what happened. Josh McDaniels was unhireable for 3 or 4 years after the Colts thing fell apart.
Yeah.
Mac Jones has a good rookie season, and suddenly he's back on the board. There's a reason for that. A coach who proves he can develop a young quarterback, even a guy with a pedigree like C.J. Stroud, top pick, coming out of Ohio State, top recruit, all that. If you prove you can make that young quarterback as a rookie a winner in the NFL, teams are going to want to hire you. I was initially hesitant about Bobby Slowick early in this process because I actually got to give my brother credit because he texted me. He's like, "What do you think of Bobby Slowick?"
No way.
Yeah,
your brother had a.
He texted me like a month ago. Well, I mean, he goes, "What do you think of Bobby Slowick?" CJ Stroud's playing well. I was like, he's so young. But like, I'm looking at now CJ Stroud the last couple weeks, and I'm like, it's basically what you said off the top. Yeah, he's young. He's not experienced. Nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to care because of the success CJ Stroud's having. If you want him, this is going to be the offseason. You go get him. And yeah, you can't look at that and not see and not be excited about what he's doing with the young quarterback. And I want to give Gerard Johnson credit as well, the quarterback's coach. That is a duo, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if Gerard Johnson follows Bobby Slowick. I'm sure the Texans will try hard to keep him as their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised if that's a guy Bobby Slowick wants to bring along. You got to look at that duo and be like, these guys are what you want if you're trying to bring along a young quarterback.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Bobby Slowick that I do wonder, and it's nothing against him as a coach, but he watched DeMeco Ryans take his time with becoming a head coach. Like, DeMeco Ryans probably could have been a head coach like 1 or 2 cycles ago, and he only took the job this year.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if Bobby Slowick looks at that and says, maybe I shouldn't just jump at the first opportunity to be a head coach. It's going to be there for me. Let me learn on the job a little bit longer. So maybe he doesn't take a job this cycle. Maybe he waits until the next one. But he reminds me a lot of McDaniel, McVay. Like, those guys were probably a year or two before they should have had the big job.
Right.
But they were going to be head coaches, and those teams jumped on it, and they benefited from it. Last thing on Slowick, I think what he also does really well in the pass game, a lot of his concepts have levels to them for Stroud, and then like the backside will have like a one-on-one route. So he can read the level side of the field where you have like, something in the flat, then you'll have like an intermediate, and then you'll have a deep. And then you can also then come off of that and then read backside. So it's kind of like a half field read in some ways, but he does have that one-on-one backside to go to if he wants to. He hit it a couple times in the last game. The touchdown to Tank Dell was an example of that backside one-on-one happening. But it's not like as complex as some of these like full field progressions that you see in other places. And I think that that's a big part of why Stroud as a rookie is succeeding. So those are the first two names, Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick. We've mentioned, we mentioned Bieniemy in the past. We talked about him in the Commanders week. I don't want to spend too much time on Bieniemy because of that, because we spent a lot of time when the Patriots played Washington. We all know that Bieniemy has a pass that has to be considered when it comes to being a head coach. I don't want to get too much into that either because I don't know enough about it to really talk about it. But the bottom line is that's going to be a factor on whether or not he can become a head coach. He's the most, by far, in terms of football, the most qualified candidate to be a head coach in the league.
Yes.
And he probably should be. So I would say that he's definitely on this list too. But the last one I want to point to is Kellen Moore in Los Angeles now. So this is another one of those guys that he's coordinated Dak Prescott and now Justin Herbert. So he's got two top 10 quarterbacks in the league. So some of that success might have to do with having two really good quarterbacks. But I think what Kellen Moore does, first of all, you know me, like, do the run game on your own time, right? So, like, Kellen Moore is going to come in here and he's going to try to score 30 points a game. There's no doubt about that. Like, that's going to be the entire thing. And I think that's something that I hope is going to happen with the next regime, or whether it's Belichick learning or the next regime, is that they have to start getting to outscoring teams. Like, that's the league now. If you're not scoring 25 points a game, you're not winning a thing. That's just the bottom line in the NFL now. So I think that he has that mindset. I think he does a good job of, his offense is pretty traditional in terms of what they do. But it has some new age flair to it, so he's going to bring some of those things. In a lot of ways, I think it's kind of like Bill O'Brien's offense and what the Patriots have been trying to do, but he's just a younger, more in tune with the way that athletes are playing these days, I think, than some of the guys that are in the building right now for the Patriots. So I like Kellen Moore. I'm not in love with Kellen Moore like I am with the first two guys on this list, but I think that out of all of that group, taking Bieniemy out of it, he's been coordinating for longer than anybody else in this group. So he's got a ton of experience doing that. The Chargers, I think, are going to seriously consider just promoting him, honestly. I think because your guy, Brandon Staley's done. Like, he's not getting the job back.
He's a bad... The math lost. I can't believe it.
Yeah, and this is one part of the Chargers for Bill that I don't really understand. I can't really wrap my head around. I understand that the Chargers are in an appealing spot from Belichick's perspective because they have the quarterback and they have the talent. I understand that for the Chargers, maybe they think, your thing with like the CEO elements of coaching, that Bill can teach them how to win and manage them late in games and like get them over the hump in that sense. But if you're the Chargers, Justin Herbert is your prized asset. And pairing him with a 72-year-old head coach that wants to win games 16-13. Like, I just don't really understand that philosophical angle. Him and Kellen Moore would not get along. Kellen Moore didn't get along with Mike McCarthy, right? So him and Kellen Moore are not going to get along. That's not going to be a pairing that's going to make much sense for the Chargers. So if Justin Herbert vouches for Kellen Moore, I could see Kellen Moore remaining in Los Angeles, whether it's as the offensive coordinator or as the head coach. But I think that he's a name to consider as a head coach moving forward. And he's got that like Kevin O'Connell thing too, where like he was a quarterback, so he kind of understands the position and that sort of thing. I always like that element of it too.
I will say this too with Kellen Moore. Let's say that the Patriots are going to go with, well, so here's a couple things. One, can you get him, I don't know what his contract situation is, but there's all this rumor about trading Bill.
Yeah.
Could you make sure you secure Kellen Moore without having to bid for him if Bill wants to
Possible.
go to the Chargers? The bigger point is, let's say Michael Penix is a serious consideration for in one way or the other. One of the biggest knocks on Penix is a lot of coaches don't want to design an offense around a lefty quarterback because you kind of have to change everything, and they're just not used to it. They're used to doing your left tackle's your blindside protector.
Right.
You're designing all your rollouts to the right and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore is a lefty who played quarterback in the NFL.
There you go.
So
He was a lefty?
Kellen Moore's a lefty. Yeah.
Oh.
So
I didn't even know that angle.
I don't know that this is the biggest thing, but like if you're gonna bring in Michael Penix,
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anybody better to design an offense for Michael Penix. And by the way, the skill set for Penix, kind of like Justin Herbert's.
Yeah.
A little bit. Big arm, likes to be aggressive, throw the ball down the field, but can hit underneath when he needs to. Who better to design an offense for Michael Penix than Kellen Moore, who appreciates that skill set and knows the challenges of managing around a lefty quarterback better than anybody. Kellen Moore's last lefty in the league before Tua.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's not a lot of lefties.
Put however much weight you want into that. I'm not saying like, okay, they need to hire Kellen Moore and draft Michael Penix, and that's the best possible combination, but it is a factor. It is a factor, and I don't think it's worth nothing. So I'm interested. That's the kind of thing I thought you'd roll your eyes at. I kind of like that you appreciate that.
Well, so McDaniels talked about it a little bit about having to. You mentioned rollouts. You mentioned the blind side. It's also he's going to favor throwing to his right.
Right.
Whereas righty quarterbacks will favor throwing to their left. So all of their like half-field concepts and things like that, all of that now needs to be on the other side of the field.
And that's harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
When you've been designing offenses a certain way your whole life. So
yeah, absolutely. So interesting list, and we're going to spin it here in a second. Do you want to?
Can I give you one more name?
You can.
You're going to hate this, but I got to ask this the other day. I really didn't know what to think of it. And I always butcher this guy's name. Lou Anarumo.
So Lou Anarumo is a fantastic defensive coach.
Defensive coordinator for the Bengals. He's never been a head coach.
No, but he's one of the best defensive minds in football right now.
He got called a mad scientist last year. Remember that Eli Apple called him a mad scientist?
I mean, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's really, really good at his job. Here's the thing. We were just talking about D'Amico Ryans and the Texans and Slowick. Slowick's gone. Like, Slowick's going to get hired for a head coaching job, whether it's this cycle, next cycle, whatever. So the Texans are going to be in the same spot that we're talking about, where they have D'Amico Ryans, who is one of the best defensive coaches in football. I think he might be a great leader, too. He's everything you want in a head coach. He's going to recycle through offensive coordinators like they're going out of style, because C.J. Stroud's just going to keep on playing guys into jobs, right? So at what point does that has to matter? Do I think it's everything? I still think you have to hire the best guy for the job. Yeah. I do believe in that. But Lou Anarumo is a good name. I think that he runs a system defensively with the Bengals that's not all that different from what the Patriots do now. He has if you're playing the hits of film Twitter's favorite little defensive wrinkles, like creeper pressure, simulated pressures, things, post snap coverage disguise, like all that kind of stuff. Like, they do all of it in Cincinnati, and they do a really good job of it. Definitely would consider him on the list. Like, if they were to have like a really widespread interview process, and we're talking about interviewing 6-8 guys, I would definitely bring him in for an interview.
The Buffalo Bills should offer him the bag. That's my take on Lou Anarumo, because he knows how to stop Josh Allen better than anybody, and he can reverse engineer that. I'm serious.
So you can, or you just take away the Josh Allen.
And there's some of that too. Yeah. No, he's such a different candidate, because all the guys we're talking about, offensive minds, played a lot of them played in the league recently. They're younger. We're talking about guys. I think the oldest guy we just discussed is 39 years old, right? Lou Anarumo's 57, lifelong defensive coach, very different kind of candidate. But if you and I use this term very lightly, like the next Belichick, if you think Belichick maybe isn't the guy, but you want somebody who's going to he has a military background, Anarumo does. He's been around the game a long time. If you still want that kind of background, but you just think it's time to part ways with Bill, and I'm not saying that's the route they should go, but if that's the route they want to go, I think Lou Anarumo is probably the best guy for that.
He's definitely, if you're talking about just strictly defensive guys on this candidate list, other than Gerard Mayo, he's the best defensive candidate on the market.
Would you rather have him or Vrabel?
I don't know. I'm not as
okay.
I know this is probably
you're not super into Vrabel. I know.
I'm not because the Titans play hard. They're a competitive football team. They haven't won jack squat with Vrabel. They really haven't. They went through a period of time with the Tannehill, Derrick Henry years where they won a really bad AFC South.
Right.
They won a really bad division. The Jaguars were laughing stock. The Colts were, starting Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz, right? They had never had a quarterback. Houston was Houston. I just don't really see what, other than the fact that he played here and was a successful player here, has a Patriot pedigree, and is a good motivator. He's a good. But I think
that's
coach.
what the value is if you're trying to get back to that identity, the old school Patriot way. Nobody is going to be able to instill it better than he can.
That's fair.
I don't think that's nothing. I'm not saying I'd hire solely based off that, but I think a guy that was in the building really and I know Mayo was in the building for Super Bowls too, but for those first three who saw it built up from what it was.
I think that's where it is for me, is that from what I've heard, and I understand that Vrabel's appealing because he has all this head coaching experience that Gerard Mayo doesn't. But from what I've heard, if you're going to go defensive minded and you're going to try to middle it with the Patriot way, but something a little bit different from Bill and all that kind of stuff, I would rather Gerard Mayo.
Okay.
Because from what I've heard about Gerard Mayo, who is on my list, by the way, I didn't name him because he's not an external candidate.
We've talked a lot about him, yeah.
But from what I've heard about Gerard Mayo is that he understands two things. One, he understands the modern, today's athlete because he's younger and he's in tune with that sort of thing. The second thing is that I also think that he understands where the game is going. He understands that the game is not, you're going to have a really good offense to win in this league. I'm not sure Vrabel thinks that. I'm not sure Vrabel is on that level, because if Vrabel was on that level, then the offenses that they've rolled out in Tennessee, which have been run first, built around Derrick Henry and shortening games and winning games 20-17 and things like that. His vision in Tennessee has not necessarily lined up with an offensive minded organization.
Yeah.
And I think Gerard Mayo would steer a little bit closer to that. But I'm glad that you mentioned, pairing quarterbacks with coaches and things like that, because we are going to talk about the college quarterbacks here, because I have a preliminary list for you, Alex. I have a top 5 preliminary list. I know you've been waiting for this, for me to actually have a take on some of these quarterbacks. So I do, but I want to get to the phones first, and then we'll do that. Colleen is in Houston. What's up, Colleen?
Hey, guys. First of all, this is definitely my favorite Patriots show. I love how you guys don't tone down the nerd. I love that. But you also don't belittle people when they have basic questions. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. The first one is about the draft, and it's not super interesting, but we need a free safety. So I was wondering who I should look out for free safeties for the 2024 draft. And the second one is more fun. Say we have the 5th overall pick, and Drake May, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Joe Alt are gone. What do you do? Okay, thanks, guys.
Good questions, Colleen. Thanks for the call. You got a free safety, Alex, but it's a first round free safety. I know people are going to roll their eyes.
Yeah, Cam Kitchens is. I forget what show I said this on. Like maybe in 4 years when he's a free agent, like this is if they're still running the same defensive system, this is the guy that's going to be at the top a lot of free agent boards for him. Cameron Kitchens from Miami, just an awesome player. I know a lot of people like Caden Bullock from USC, who's kind of a day two guy. I like Steve Stevens. That's his real name.
Yeah.
Steve Stevens from Oregon is another one. I haven't gotten too deep. I keep saying I'm going to get deeper into this class yet, and I'm working on it, but they do need a guy. I wouldn't rule out free safety being a free agent signing, too.
Yeah.
Just because I think that's a position where maybe you want some more experience. It would have made more sense to draft a guy when Devin McCourty was still
would have
here.
been made more sense to like get ahead of the need.
Yeah, exactly. And have him learn from Devin McCourty.
Sometimes you would like to do that at one position, maybe free safety,
So
maybe tackle, maybe quarterback, maybe receiver. I'm sorry.
Right. It's tough because
like any position, third down running back. Yeah.
Most of the top free safeties that are draft eligible are like redshirt sophomores and juniors and stuff. So I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't go all in outside of guys who are projected to be like first round picks. Let's wait and see who declares for the draft and who goes back to school. But we'll definitely get into those names more as we go on.
The guy that you mentioned from Miami, there's not a whole lot of guys that are like true center fielders that are that high, that go that highly in the draft anymore. Like most of the times it's like a Derwin James type player, right? That goes that high. That's these like Kyle Duggar types, these versatile, do everything type of safeties. That guy is a true ball hawk center fielder.
Right.
And he's got incredible range and instincts in the deep part of the field. If they didn't have like 17 other needs, I would say that he would be squarely on the board.
If this was like 3 years ago, that's the guy we're talking about.
Yeah, agreed. The second question. So the big four, I think we should call it. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Olu Fashanu can be in there too.
So to answer her question, I would probably say Olu Fashanu would be the pick at 5 if those four guys are off the board. I don't really see. I think that there's a pretty big drop off at quarterback between Caleb Williams and Drake May to like the next wave of guys. So I think you're kind of getting into that position similarly to what happened with a lot of teams in the 21 draft where like you're just taking a quarterback to just take a quarterback at that point because you need a quarterback. I wouldn't necessarily do that if I'm the Patriots. So if you're not getting one of the top two guys, and we're going to get to this in a second, I do think that you're talking about position players at that point, like an Ola Fashanu or someone along those lines.
I don't know that I'd take Michael Penix at 5. I definitely wouldn't be afraid to move back a couple spots, take Michael Penix and add another top 100 pick.
Yeah.
Especially if you then take what you gained from moving back and move back into the first round. I don't think the drop off is as big from that top tier of Williams and May down to Penix.
Okay.
It's there. It's a different kind of player. I think with Caleb Williams and Drake May, you're talking about guys who you're expecting them to be C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
You're expecting them to be a clear franchise quarterback in year one, where Michael Penix is a guy I think can be a year one, week one starter, but maybe it's a year or two until he's that franchise guy. He's a little bit further along. I'm okay with that if you create other assets to build around him, right? Let's say you trade down a little bit, take Michael Penix, move back up, you take Rome Odunze. Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. The guy I'm not really interested in, and I know people are going to roll their eyes at this, but I'm really not that interested in Brock Bowers. I think tight end's a luxury pick.
Yeah.
I think you get to pick a tight end when you have other pieces in place. Building an offense around Brock Bowers, he's very talented, but building an offense around Brock Bowers is tough because he's just not going to be able to make that kind of impact on his own. It's kind of like the Marvin Harrison thing, but even more so. And I know there's some player usage involved in this. It's kind of what the Falcons try to do with Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been a disappointment.
Or even, it's also kind of like TJ Hawkinson with the Lions where Patricia was there, where it's just, you might have this well-rounded, great tight end.
He's a really good player. What's he changing? So
the only way that a tight end is worth it at that point in the draft is if he turns into Gronk or Travis Kelce.
Right.
And expecting that out of anybody,
even Brock Bowers.
Even Brock Bowers is just ridiculous.
And look, I would say that they're going to need a tight end. This is a really good tight end class. You're going to get really good players down the board. Jadavian Sanders from Texas is a projected second-round pick. Cade Stover, late day 2, early day 3 from Ohio State, is a guy I really like. And I mean, I keep saying they'll really like. We don't know who's making the picks. Cade Stover's a guy fans should be super excited about. Oronde Gadsden from Syracuse is he's like a receiver tight end hybrid. He's a really fun player. Patriots fans may remember his dad played for the Dolphins way back. Trey Knox, Dalen Hooker a little further down if he
when
comes
you
out of
say way
school.
back, you probably mean like the mid 2000s because we're old.
No, Oronde Gadsden is like I forget he played in the 90s. Like the dad Oronde. I'm gonna look now. He played for the Dolphins and the Jets, so he definitely played the Patriots quite a bit. I'm sure Bill would have a story about him. He played from 95 to 03. He didn't play for the Jets. I don't know why I thought he played for the Jets. He didn't. He played for the Dolphins from 98 to 03.
We're old. All right.
90s is way back.
Okay. Let's.
He also played in the European Football League.
There you go. Let's Rohan Davey.
He might have actually. Yeah, I think Rohan Davey played for the Frankfurt Galaxy.
Yeah.
If you just pick this out, hang on.
Rohan
I
Davey.
am going to be so impressed. 1997. 1997 Frankfurt Galaxy. Rohan Davey was on the Berlin Thunder
Oh God.
a couple years before that.
I loved Rohan Davey.
But Frankfurt.
Rohan Davey was a great backup quarterback.
Like Rohan Davey was great.
Yeah, loved him. All right. Keith is in Atlanta. What's up, Keith? Keith.
He's so floored that I got you talking about Rohan Davey. He can't speak.
Keith, are you there? All right, Keith, call us back and we'll get you on the air. Tyree is in Charleston, South Carolina. What's up, Tyree?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
I love that you guys are talking college football, and I'm in the South, so I always watch college football. There's a lot of great players out there this year, but I have an interesting question for you guys, and it's probably not what nobody wants to hear, and it is probably highly unlikely that this happens, but there could be a strong chance that with the way everybody's records are right now, especially teams who are on the bubble, that if we did go on a run, would everybody be really, really mad that if we just won out every game? Or would you guys want to stay where we're at and get a good quarterback for next year? I mean, what if Mac Jones turns the page this weekend?
Yeah, it's a fair question, Tyree. Thanks for the call. I've thought about this a lot all season. Like, the bottom line is that it's much easier for the Patriots to rebuild if you don't need a quarterback.
Right.
And when I say
then guys like Brock Bowers, Cam Kitchens are maybe in play. Marvin Harrison Jr.
The tackles, when I say don't need a quarterback, what I mean by that is that none of us think that Mac Jones is going to all of a sudden become Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, no one thinks...
You have made that take very clear.
Well, I'm just saying...
Mac Jones is not Patrick Mahomes.
Use whatever quarterback you want.
That is your favorite
Patrick
take.
Mahomes, whatever. Like,
Patrick Mahomes.
He's not going to become a top 5 quarterback in the league. I don't think that's on the table anymore. But if you...
I don't think I ever thought that.
No, I know. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that ship has sailed, that he's going to be this top 5 elite kind of quarterback. But when I say you don't need a quarterback, it's not this like, this is not a choice.
You're not totally hitting the reset button.
Right. And you have a Jared Goff. You have a Kirk Cousins. You have a Derek Carr. You have one of these guys.
The guy we thought Mac Jones was going to be when he got drafted.
Yeah. You have one of these guys that is just good enough, right? He's good enough for now. It's so much easier to approach the offseason with that line of thinking. So in some ways, if they rattled off 7 straight wins, they got to 9-8, maybe they even squeak into the playoffs at 9-8. Like that might be better in some senses.
That is better. That's absolutely better because it's always good to be winning football games. And
Yeah.
if that happens, it means players are playing well. If they're going to start winning games, it means guys that are not playing well are.
Yeah.
Guys like Josh Uche, guys like Tyquan Thornton, obviously Mac Jones.
Yeah.
You're now getting performance out of guys you thought, well, Uche's different because he's a pending free agent, but you're now getting performance out of guys that you can build around that you thought you'd have to replace.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to replace, if you don't have to go out and use a premium pick on a wide receiver because Tyquan Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster are now playing well along with Demario Douglas, that opens up opportunities.
Yeah.
If Mac Jones is playing well, you don't have to use that pick on a quarterback right now. You can go out and address other holes that exist. Yes, that would absolutely be a good thing. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but it is always preferable to be 9-8 and make the playoffs than to be 2-15.
Yeah.
Period. Like I get it. If they lose more games, they get a better pick. The idea should, but the main goal, don't lose sight of the main goal. You want it to be, you should have enough good players that you don't need to have that top pick to ultimately improve your team.
You just want to be building to something.
Right.
And if that's what it ends up being, and then it feels like maybe they're actually on an upward trajectory as at the end of the season and they're building towards something, that's not a terrible thing. Now, I know people are going to hear this and they're going to say, Max sucks, they need a new quarterback. All this does is kick the can down the road to making that happen.
But if you win 8 games in a row or whatever it would be, 7 games in a row,
yeah,
Mac Jones probably isn't that bad.
Yeah, right. And that's sort of our
They're
point.
not going to win 7 games in a row with Mac Jones playing like
right.
this.
You definitely have to, with him playing like this, no way.
Right.
You definitely have to look at it objectively of how it looks, though, right? Like if they win a bunch of games 13-10, then like we're still in the quarterback conversation. But
you're still in the quarterback conversation, but at that point we can start talking more about, Quinn Ewers if he comes out, and Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy and doing the Jalen Hurts thing.
Correct.
Because even if they're winning games 13-10, all right, Mac's not turning the ball over to the point where it's costing them games.
Yeah, agreed. All right, talking about quarterbacks here. So I have my preliminary top 5.
Okay.
And I want to preface this with the fact that this is subject to change. And it will change. And this is based off of like TV copy on my couch on Saturday. All right. So don't like at me like, oh, Evan, you don't know anything about football. You have so and so over.
It's still gonna happen.
You're right. This is very preliminary.
You always jump down my throat when I say I want to talk college football.
Yeah.
This time of year, and you say because of that exact reason things change. So I'm not going to throw you a life raft.
Thank you.
This is how this thing works. I always talk about the pre-draft process, right? You always hear me say we're going through the process. The games are the biggest part of the process.
Right.
Normally, we're not talking about this till after the games are over, so things are moving around a little bit. Things move massively during the season. A month ago, we thought there was no shot Caleb Williams wouldn't go 1-1. Now he might not even be the top quarterback. There are guys who people thought were going to be first-round picks, KJ Jefferson, Joe Milton, Sam Hartman, that might not even get drafted at this point. This all changes massively. This is an in-progress. Here's how we look at it. November 22nd, 10:52 a.m. This is what the board looks like right now. Rivalry weekend, there's some big games for a lot of these guys this weekend. This can change drastically and will change drastically before we get to bowl season. Then you have bowl games.
And I would also say
the Senior Bowl. It's all going to change.
I would also say that who's the head coach and who's the offensive coordinator
are another big part of
it. That all matters too, which is why I wanted to talk about the coaches first, because I think some of these guys I have in mind, like if you draft this guy, I want him to be with this
we talked
coach.
about like Drake May, Ben Johnson, Kellen Moore, Michael Penix, right?
Yeah.
You pair them, but the way I would do it and the way I've done all my draft coverage up to this point, I know it annoys people, but this is just how you have to do it. Unless I preface something by saying this guy works with the Bill Belichick regime or this guy with this coach. This is a big board. This is not a Patriots. I don't know about you.
That.
For me, my rankings are neutral team. I am starting a team.
Right now,
Which guy am I taking? This is not in the context of the Patriots.
All right, without all of the caveats and all of the hedging aside, here's my top 5. Okay, I'm gonna start with one. I'm start at the top. So the other caveat, the other hedge that I'm gonna use here is that this is based off of my eyes. Like this, I'm talking about on the field football. Caleb Williams is the most talented quarterback prospect in this class. Caleb Williams has the highest ceiling and has the most ability, has the best physical, however you want to put it. And I don't think it's particularly close. I don't. I don't really think it's all that close. With that being said, I don't know Caleb Williams. I don't cover Caleb Williams. I'm not going to be in the interview rooms with Caleb Williams in this draft cycle.
Yeah.
I don't feel great about getting into the mentality of an athlete that I don't know.
Yeah.
I just, it feels weird to me. With that being said, I know that when we get into all of this, that the Patriots do have a top 3, top 5 pick, and Caleb Williams is a serious discussion. Everybody in their mother is going to be talking about how he cried in his mama's hands, and he doesn't talk to the media after they lose, and he doesn't shake the hands of opponents, and like all this stuff, right? That's been coming out. I want to own a team, like all the stuff that's come out about Caleb Williams and his father, his family, his mental mindset, all that kind of stuff. With that being said, football-wise, he's 1-1 to me, and I don't think it's very close. He has got the best arm talent, that's for sure. He has improvisational skills that nobody else in this class has. He's discount Mahomes. He is.
Yeah.
I don't want to call him Patrick Mahomes.
No, you can't.
Hate that comp. I call him discount Mahomes because that's more fair. No one's Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to be Patrick Mahomes, but I think that he's the closest thing that you're going to get to Patrick Mahomes in a draft prospect, and that's the way he plays. So with that in mind, if you are thinking organizationally that Caleb Williams is probably going to be your guy, you do need to get an offensive-minded coach in here that is willing to foster the playmaking, right? You can't put him...
That's not Ben Johnson's offense.
No, and you can't... I don't think it's Bill O'Brien's offense
No,
really either.
no, it's not. You
can't put him in an offense that just wants him to make the right read because reads don't matter to him, right?
Right.
He's going to play his game. The throws that he made against UCLA, I know they lost by $1 billion. I don't care.
The defense, here's the thing. You can't look at the win-loss record with Caleb Williams. That defense, I think there was a stat somewhere where like they put up 35 points at least in every loss.
Yeah.
And this was before this weekend. I think they only scored 20 against UCLA, but that defense, the technical term for it is ass.
Yeah.
They rank 100. They were like 128th out of 133rd when they fired defense coordinator Alex Grinch. I know people want quarterbacks who win, and I want to get into that when you're done with Williams, but I just wanted to point that out. You can't really look at the win-loss with Caleb Williams this year because he played winning football in so many games.
Oh, that Washington game. That's like one of those, we talk about like QBR.
Right.
Caleb Williams' QBR against Washington had to have been like 98.
They were the 124th defense in the nation. That's out of 133 teams. They ranked behind UMass.
Yeah.
Again, the technical term for it, ass. You can't blame him for a lot of those losses. You just
don't
can't do it.
bleep that out. That's good.
Can I not say that?
No, I'm just messing with
All
you.
right.
So the throw against UCLA that made the rounds was the step up in the pocket deep ball. But he made a throw in the 2-minute drill before the end of the half where he just kind of like evades a rusher and then the back turns upfield. The back was just running into the flat. He sees Caleb Williams kind of buy time in the pocket. The back turns upfield and Caleb Williams just like effortlessly just like throws it on, a little flick of the wrist up the field to the back. Those types of plays, like take out the ridiculous go ball aside because that's just stupid. Those little types of plays that just kind of like save the down for the offense or actually even like add like yards to like unexpected yards to the offense. You have to be able to do that a little bit in this league now. Like it doesn't have to be your entire game, but it has to be in your bag. If you can't do a little bit of the playground stuff, it's just so hard to move the ball consistently without where everything has to be like matriculated perfectly down the field all the time. So he is, I call him discount Mahomes. I think that there is, and I take this for what it's worth, there is a little bit of Josh Allen in there too with the turnovers.
We'll get to Josh Allen when we get to one of the other quarterbacks, but
there's a little bit of Josh Allen with the turnover aspect. So maybe that it's the better comp is more like Josh Allen.
I don't think it is.
He's not as big and physically imposing as Josh Allen, so that's why I don't go there. But he has a little bit of that boomer bust like Josh Allen does. So I think either way, you're looking at a guy in Caleb Williams that projects as a top 10 quarterback in the league.
Yeah. First off, let me apologize. UMass, I didn't realize, gave up 49 in Liberty last week, so they actually finished, or they're currently below UCLA in scoring. But again, 128 and 133 is not great.
Yeah.
My thing with Williams on the attitude, before the whole thing with the crying, people were criticizing him that he didn't care enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's all a little overblown, but not talking to the media after a loss, some of that stuff. Look, it's a factor. How's he going to handle the Boston market? And I think that's
adversity in general.
So I want to get to that. You asked handling the media about, it's not a Caleb Williams thing. You wonder that about any prospect. You wonder that about Mac coming from Alabama. The adversity thing, I'm actually going to say something about Caleb Williams I said about Mac Jones. Be consistent here. When everybody was like, last year, when it wasn't working with Patricia and he's getting called up by a team member, like, why isn't he handling it better? Remember when I was yelling, why does it matter how he's handling it?
Right.
The goal should be getting out of this situation and making it a better situation, not him handling a bad situation better. You shouldn't lose that many games if you draft Caleb Williams. Shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
If he's losing games, the issue is you're losing games with a star quarterback. The issue is not how your star quarterback is handling losing games.
Yeah, I have.
So
I've come to the point with him with the off-field stuff, with the mental, whatever you want to call it. I do have worries about his father. I do. Because
so I don't know that much about his dad.
His dad, it's not, he's been better.
Yeah.
I think that whether it's Caleb Williams, whether it was Lincoln Riley, whether it was Caleb Williams' future agent, I don't know. But it seems like he's gotten better. There was some like LeVar Ball stuff early in the season where he was coming out in the media as himself and saying bad things about USC's defense and all that were all it was all warranted. But you can't do that in this market.
I just think
you can't draft Caleb Williams, have him play like a bad month of football,
right,
and then have his dad on ESPN talking about how terrible Bill Belichick is. Like it just can't happen.
So again, if you draft Caleb Williams, you should be winning. You are looking for Caleb Williams to have a CJ Stroud type impact. You should be winning year one. Shouldn't matter. That's where I'm at with it. I say it all the time. There's no such thing as a perfect prospect. If it wasn't that, it's going to be something else. There is one other thing I worry about with Caleb Williams, and that's his size. He's 6'1", 215. He's not exactly big. Now, Mahomes is 6'2", but he's 225. He's built out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams is going to need to get in the weight room. He's going to need to put some bulk on because playing the way he is, he's going to take hits.
Yeah.
You were trying to find a comp before. A little Russell Wilson-y.
Yeah, that he's taller than Russell Wilson, but
not by that much. Isn't Russell Wilson 6
I
feet tall?
could see like young Russell Wilson.
Well, young, not now. Young Russell Wilson. Let me be clear about that. Oh, Russ is 5'11". Okay, so he's 2 inches taller. But I do. You. If I have one football concern about Caleb Williams, it's his size. And if you draft Caleb Williams, you're probably not drafting Joe Alt. And
right.
Is Trent Brown going to be back? Doesn't seem like it after yesterday. Is Mike Onwenu going to be back? This is a guy that's going to take hits. He's going to get beat up, but he's going to need to be able to handle it.
And we spent a lot of time on this, but I think the one thing that I do like about it, though, is like he should be able to run around a little bit and help out
and
the
protect
offensive
himself.
line
Yes,
in that respect, just a little bit. All right, Caleb Williams won one to me. I understand that if you soured on him with the off-field stuff, but just from a football perspective, he's the best quarterback in the class.
Yeah. I won't lie. I was teetering towards Drake May, but watching Drake May last week against Clemson, I'm back to Caleb Williams.
Number 2 is Drake May.
Number 2 is Drake May.
Drake May is number 2, pretty solidly number 2.
I still think you're expecting that instant franchise quarterback, but the floor is not quite as high.
Yeah. So I think with Drake May, the things that you like, he's a prototypical NFL prospect, and I hate saying that because it becomes like a race thing and things like that. But he's a prototypical NFL prospect.
He's 6'4", 230.
He's 6'4". He's tall in the pocket. He has a big arm. He looks the part. He just looks the part of an NFL quarterback. I think that there are a lot of accurate comps to Justin Herbert here. Like I think that Justin Herbert's bigger. But
not that much bigger.
Justin Herbert's like 6'6". Justin Herbert's a monster. But
making a big deal about 2 inches.
That is a big deal.
Okay.
You just made a big deal about 2 inches with Caleb Williams.
No, I said they're about the same size.
No,
5'11", 6'1", and you were like, no, Russell Wilson's bigger. Russell Wilson's smaller.
He is smaller, but that's besides the point. What I really like about Drake May is that he has all of like the polish of like an NFL pocket passer with just a little bit of the moxie of playmaking, right? Like we saw it against Clemson with the back foot throw, kind of just drift to your right a little bit, knowing the pressure, the blitz is coming from the left-hand side, and just drop an absolute dime. Like he's got a little bit of that sort of thing to him, which is why I like the Justin Herbert comp, because Herbert is not this like out of structure magician, but he's got...
You don't think so?
Herbert... No, I feel like Herbert is much more of like late in the down magician, which is different in my opinion.
Okay,
than like
I get what you're saying.
around
I get what
and,
you're
like,
saying.
creating things. So the throw that, for example, like the throw that Herbert made to Quentin Johnson, that shocker Quentin Johnson dropped. Shocker, not like anybody could have seen that coming. That throw is a throw that I think Drake May has in his bag, right? Like I think that Drake May would make that type of throw too. Really polished, well-rounded prospect, good arm strength, good poise in the pocket, seems to have a pretty good knack for like where pressure is going to come from and how to just drift and move subtly side to side a little bit just to buy himself that a little extra beat of time. The one thing that I would say that I did notice with him that I think is going to be something that he's going to have to work on, his footwork and his base is a little bit inconsistent. And because of that, his accuracy. He throws like a catchable, accurate ball most of the time, but like his pinpoint ball placement isn't always perfect because of his footwork. So that'll be something that he'll have to improve at the NFL level. But there's not a whole lot to dislike about him. I think some of your points, though, in the past with him, that like what's his standout trait?
Right.
It's probably doesn't exist. He's just well-rounded and good at everything.
He's the second best at everything in the class. Here's my thing on May. I love the size, love the athleticism, love the arm. You need a really good quarterback coach working with him because he can make plays from the pocket. I think he's a little too willing to go away from that.
Yep.
And you watch some of the plays that he makes, and I got to shout out Taylor Kyles from CLNS Media who had this take, and I think it's a great take. Drake May does a lot of the like weird ad-lib stuff that Mac Jones does, but it just works.
Well, because he's more talented.
The back foot throw. He had one. Remember the underhand Mac Jones did in Germany?
Yeah.
Drake May did that same thing the night before, but completed it to the running back for a first down. So what I worry about with Drake May is I think the way he wasn't supposed to be in this tier with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be that next tier. So I talked about this tier is you're expecting instant franchise quarterback. The next tier we'll get to Michael Penix as year one starter, but maybe not franchise guy.
Yeah.
Part of how he got to this tier was making a lot of those plays. But you look at the context in which he made them, the teams he made them against, I don't know how much of that stuff, he can't be doing that in the NFL. Not at the regularity he does it in college.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean he
fair.
can't do it. That doesn't mean he can't play out of structure. He never should. It's part of his game. But I worry that he's relied too much on it this year. And if he tries doing that in the NFL, it's going to look a little bit like Mac Jones.
But this is why I like the Herbert comp, because I felt the same way in a lot of senses with Herbert at Oregon. Because Herbert at Oregon, and same with it. This is another reason why I like Drake May. I think I agree with your point that he does some things that I don't know if he's going to have the physical talent to do in the NFL.
It's not even physical talent. It's just NFL players aren't going to allow those things to happen.
Right, that's a better way.
So it's coachable. It's very coachable.
Yeah.
But this is where, again, if it's the if it's the current staff that has just failed to develop a quarterback, I'm going to be a little worried about Drake May. If you get one of these quarterback gurus, a Kellen Moore coming in here, a guy like Bobby Slowick, okay, those guys can. And by the way, C.J. Stroud did some of that stuff too. Like, I'd feel a lot better about it. So
my question is, and this would be my question to Drake May.
Yeah.
And I think that this happened with Herbert at Oregon, which is why people overthought Herbert coming out.
Well, it's also Oregon had just churned out so many terrible quarterbacks. And USC kind of has too.
So here's UNC.
UNC, yep.
My question to Drake May would be, did you feel that you had to do all this BS because your team stinks and you're carrying the team on your back and you're trying to make plays because the only way you're going to win games is if you're Superman? So I think that's what happened to Herbert, and then Herbert got in the league, and as bad as some of the coaching has been with the Chargers, he miraculously somehow has been able to play within himself in the league.
He made Keenan Allen like the most targeted wide receiver in the NFL over a 3-year span. He's going who he trusts.
Right.
What I would say about May is if he does feel he doesn't have the talent around him, I would be a little concerned. Omarion Hampton, their running back, is one of the best running backs in college football. He's got Tez Walker at wide receiver, is going to be a first-round pick. A top 100 pick. Bryson Nesbitt, their tight end, is a draft pick. They've got a couple other guys who aren't draft eligible yet.
But that team, just in general, I was watching the broadcast against Clemson, and I said this on Unfiltered. The broadcast said that when they were meeting with the UNC coaching staff, UNC had trick plays in the plan because they knew that Clemson was just a much more talented team.
And here's where I worry about Drake May. And again, if you've heard me say this before.
I just feel like this happens with UNC every year where they have a couple of individual draftable talents, but as a whole, their roster talent just doesn't stack up.
Well, so here's where the other thing comes in for me. When you evaluate these guys, and I think I might have picked this up from you, you got to look at. I don't care what Drake May did against Syracuse. I don't care what Drake May did against Pittsburgh. Those teams are terrible.
Yeah.
The the three best defenses he faced this year were South Carolina, Duke, and Clemson.
Yeah.
And he played okay against Duke.
Yeah.
He didn't really play well against South Carolina. He did not play well against Clemson.
Yeah.
I'd throw in Minnesota, who's another decent, it's a Big Ten defense.
Yeah.
He didn't play super well against. He kind of ate up against garbage time opponents. And that doesn't mean he's a bad.
So
you want him to do that. If he's playing
you.
Bad against the bad defenses, he wouldn't be a first round pick. But
he's not, unfortunately, because they lost to Clemson.
Right.
They're not going to be in a big time bowl.
They're not going to, and that sucks because I would have liked to see him get a chance to rebound.
The Orange Bowl or something
like
that.
I really wanted to see him in the playoff. They should have gone undefeated. Again, the ACC is kind of terrible this year. But
so the one. I agree with a lot of what you're saying about Drake May, which is I wanted to put Drake May ahead of Caleb Williams at 1.2, but I couldn't do it because I think that all the points that you've made about his season are true. I think the one thing that I am hoping for Drake May's sake, Drake May should be at the Senior Bowl.
Drake May needs to be at Senior Bowl. Yes, that is a great point.
So if Drake May goes to the Senior Bowl, even if it's just one practice and he just lights it up at the Senior Bowl, then I'm going to be way less concerned about all of these things that we're talking about. But he can't, in my opinion, he's not consistent enough against good teams to have me be banging the table.
We do this a lot with these guys. I'm trying to remember who some of the guys were last year. There was a wide receiver we did it with that we really liked that he just tore up like a top 10 opponent. And I'll give you one this year, Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
Some people are in, some people are out on Xavier Worthy. He's a little undersized. He played an offense that really, I think, alleviated some of his weaknesses. The Xavier Worthy people, I think you're going to be one of them, I'll be one of them, are going to point to what he did to Alabama and say, this is an elite defense. It's always been an elite defense. Elite corners, he tore them up. What is the game you're pointing at with Drake May and saying, I'm not worried about it because he did this to that team? It's probably his game against Miami.
Yeah.
He threw 4 touchdowns, threw for 270 yards. He was pretty good in that game. I'm not going to be somebody that's like, well, look at what he did to a Miami team that had a habit of choking this year. Duke, Clemson, South Carolina would have been that game. We'll see who he gets in the bowl game if he plays in the bowl game. I don't think he's going to play in the bowl game.
Yeah.
But, which part of the reason I want to see him in the playoff, he would have played. He doesn't really have that one game. Even with Caleb Williams, even though they lost, you said it before, you point to that Washington game. Washington has not a top 10 defense in the nation. They're a solid defense. There's NFL prospects on the field.
Yeah, especially that corner. The Washington.
Oh, yeah, that guy. I'm blanking on his name. He's nasty.
Wow.
You point to the Washington game. You point to the Oregon game.
Yeah, and all last season.
Right.
Yeah.
And you say, look at what he did to these teams.
Yeah.
Drake May doesn't have that game.
Right. Senior Bowl guy. Maybe we'll see him there.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing the bowl game. He absolutely should play in the Senior Bowl.
Okay, so Mac Jones is going to come up here in a minute, and I don't mean to rush through these, but I do want to talk a little bit about what Mac says and the quarterback situation in the Giants. So this is probably going to be where we differ the most on these quarterback rankings. I have Jaden Daniels ahead of Michael Penix right now.
Bold.
So I have Jaden Daniels 3, and I have Michael Penix 4.
Okay.
I think they're in the same tier.
Do you have? Okay.
I don't think it's if you said it was you're a Penix guy, I'm a Daniels guy, it's fine.
Okay.
The one thing that I would say about Daniels that I really like, first of all, I was talking to Keyshawn Booty about him, and Booty said that he was not at this level last year.
No, he wasn't. Yeah.
And he went and he worked at it in the offseason, got with the quarterbacks coach in the offseason, worked on his craft, has come back, and has a real chance to win the Heisman Trophy.
He should win it. Yeah. It would be a disappointment if he doesn't win it.
So that, I think, is something to be said for the work ethic and all the things he put into it.
Yeah.
What I also really like about Jaden Daniels is the consistency with his release and with his ability to get the ball out quickly. He's got a lightning quick release. Like, he's got that like kind of snappy, just, doesn't have to always be on platform, but can be on platform. He is what the league is now from like a spread quarterback standpoint. Like, this is what the league is. Like, that this is the type of guy that everybody's trying to emulate.
Yeah.
I said Herbert would be my Drake May comp.
Yep.
Caleb Williams is discount Mahomes.
Yep.
I really think Jaden Daniels is CJ Stroud. Like, I think he plays a ton like CJ Stroud. I don't think his arm talent is elite, but I think it's good enough. And I think that his decision making, his release, and his ability to get the ball out, and then obviously his deep ball is really, really good.
Well, it's the deep ball is the big thing for me, because when he transferred to LSU from Arizona State, that was the big critique, was he couldn't throw the deep ball. And it wasn't an arm strength thing, it was a accuracy thing. And you mentioned the way he's improved, I think, is tremendous. And let me say, I really like Jaden Daniels. I have Penix ahead of him. I'll get to why in a minute.
Yeah.
You didn't even touch on the running ability, which is
because
outstanding.
This is my concern. He's kind of real thin.
So it's not just that.
He's not like Taekwon, but he's thin.
And he doesn't take care of himself.
Yeah.
He takes some absurd hits.
Yeah.
He needs to learn. My comp for him as a college quarterback, I'm not quite there yet with him as an NFL prospect, is Robert Griffin III.
Okay.
I
didn't realize he was that dynamic of a runner.
He ran for 150 yards against Alabama, Evan.
I know, but it's college. In Alabama, just like, okay, but yeah.
He's the best. He's the best rushing quarterback in this draft, at least at the top of the board, the guys we're going to talk about. That
makes me like it even more.
He's got, I don't know if he's going to be a 4.4 guy. He might be a 4.5 guy.
Yeah.
But he doesn't take care of himself. And that ultimately, I'll say, there's some RG3 in there, because RG3 was a dynamic thrower of the football. He could attack to all three phases. He had a big arm. You couldn't contain him in the pocket. And he also brought an electric run element. He's not quite as fast as RG3 was. But what did RG3 in was he wouldn't slide. He wouldn't go out of bounds. He didn't know how to protect himself, and he wasn't that big.
Yeah.
I think you have some of the same issues with Jaden Daniels. I think you do. I'm going to pull
I agree. That's my one knock, right? That's my one concern. You just look at him like
Jaden Daniels ran a 4.5 40 at Arizona State.
Yeah, he's a playmaker.
He's an elite ball carrier.
So in some way, I used CJ Stroud because I think as a thrower,
I was going to say he's not he's a much better.
But when you just watch the two guys throw the football, they look really similar.
But, okay, here's what you do. He's the last two Ohio State quarterbacks combined.
Okay,
he's throws like CJ Stroud and runs like Justin Fields. If you want to say that.
Right. So the guy that when we talk about like pairing quarterbacks with coaches and stuff like that, if I'm drafting a guy like Jaden Daniels, I want somebody from the Eagles to coach him.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
Hurts is so thick that you can't really compare him to Hurts.
Right.
But in terms of like having an offense that has all these different like RPO elements early down and like then spreads the field on passing situations, I just think Jaden Daniels would be a monster.
So
in that type of
you need to watch Jaden Daniels as a runner. Like you need. I know you don't watch the guys I tell you to watch. You will. You might move him into that top tier if you watch him as a runner.
I love Jaden Daniels.
I didn't realize you hadn't watched him. Okay, here's why I like Michael Penix.
Really excited about
it. And
him.
first thing, people are going to yell at me about the knees. It was 3 years ago. He hasn't had an issue since.
Alex, he tore both.
If he checks out at the combine, if he doesn't check out at the combine, I get it. If he checks out at the combine, fine. I like Michael Penix because he's got the best pure arm talent in this class. I don't think there's a better pure passer can hit a throw. You talk about defending every blade of grass. Michael Penix can throw to any spot on the field and can do it competitively. I love that. He's not a statue in the pocket. He plays like it. But the throw he made against USC, when he needs to move, he can move. The other thing about him...
Defend the wall. Go ahead, because we got an emailer here that said, Dane Brugler had Michael Penix like 8th.
Yeah, Dane Brugler's way out on Penix, but he also has J.J. McCarthy in the top 10.
I want to hear it. Let's go. Defend your guy.
Michael Penix,
Yeah.
dog.
He is a little bit of a
dog.
I agree with that.
And it's not to say the other guys aren't, and it's not to say some of the other guys aren't good leaders. Michael Penix went to an Indiana program that had never won anything in football and put them on the map. He beat Penn State in 2020.
They were ranked, right, when he got hurt in 2020?
That is the only loss Penn State has that's not to Ohio State or Michigan in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Tears his ACLs, keeps coming back. He transferred to so where does he go when he transfers? Does he go to some big-time program, which he could have gone to? No. He goes to a Washington program that had just finished 4-8, was changing the coach.
I love how it's November, and he's just
buys
on
in
the wall for this guy.
He is a
Pounding
huge
the
reason.
Table.
That program
Alex
finished
is on the table for Michael Penix.
That program finished 4-8 2 years ago. They're going to play in the college football playoff this year under a new coach. I go back to that Oregon game. He takes that shot to the ribs. He's clearly in pain.
Yeah.
What does he do? He comes back. He leads them down the field for the game-winning score. Roma Dunze was a top recruit, was going to transfer. He stayed at Washington in a large part because he wanted to play with Michael Penix. That dude gets everybody to buy in around him. He is a leader.
He is a dog.
He is a dog.
He's got
that
some
is
dog
a guy
in him.
you go to war for. When you look at what the
agree with that.
Patriots are going to have to do, turning this thing around, who's the guy you want leading your team out of the tunnel?
Man,
I'm
drafting him tomorrow after this.
This is what I'm saying. And people
we're
will roll their eyes and say, this doesn't have to do with football. He's a good thrower.
Yeah.
Michael Penix is a guy I want, the kind of guy I want leading my team.
That's fair.
And I think you have, especially for all the people, and look, I think that the concerns about Mac's character are overblown. But when you talk right now about what's going on with the locker room and his body language and all of that.
Even if you talk about Caleb Williams.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael Penix you're going to go to war with Michael Penix.
He's a dude.
And I think you have to value that.
I love
that. And again,
that
that's not to say
great.
that I think Jaden Daniels has that in him too.
Yeah.
But Michael Penix has it to an exponential level. And I love that.
Okay. Great speech. Good job.
Thank you. If you can't tell, I get fired up talking about quarterback intangibles.
Michael Penix, two things that I really liked about him, and I have a comp that you're probably not going to like. Cause it's a little,
my comp has been lefty Phillip Rivers.
Okay. That's not bad.
All right.
I kind of like that better than mine, actually.
All right.
We'll think about it.
Okay.
In terms of dimes, pinpoint in a keyhole, absolute on a platter dimes. Nobody throws more in this class than Michael Penix, in my opinion.
Arm talent,
especially from a vertical, down the field standpoint. He throws more deep ball dimes than anybody else. He is pinpoint accuracy down the field, and he does a really good job of throwing a Dunes open, a Dunze open. If he's got the defenders inside of him and he's got to throw back shoulder, he throws back shoulder.
The fourth down throw last week against Oregon
State. He does a really good job of, especially against man coverage, knowing where to put the ball to make the receiver, to help the receiver out. Love that about his game. Deep ball dimes, I agree with you 100% that he's got some dog in him. I think that he's a gamer. I think that he's competitive. I think that in order to come back from 2 torn ACLs and he's had a couple of shoulder injuries
too,
as well.
But he's been healthy since 21.
In order to come back from all of that and still be leading a team that should be in the college football playoff, I would think that you got to have a little bit of a fight, a little bit of competitive nature in you. I love a lot of things about Michael Penix.
So just real quick on that, we talked about with Caleb Williams, right? How's he going to handle it if the team's losing?
Yeah.
I'm not worried about how Michael Penix is going to handle it. Not one bit. He's going to embrace that. He's going to he's going to be at the front of the line turning that thing around.
My two fears with him, one, you have to talk about the injury history.
Yeah, it is a concern.
The fact that he's 23 now, so he's older.
He'll be 24 as a rookie.
Yeah.
He'll be a 24-year-old
He's
rookie.
An older
His ceiling's
rookie.
a little limited.
Yep, and he's already been hurt severely twice. And that has to be a factor.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would just say with him is that I agree with you that maybe the statue in the pocket stuff is a little bit overblown, but he's not mobile. He's not a runner.
He is. He just doesn't do it. He can be. He doesn't do it, but he can when he needs to.
Maybe, but he's not a runner. All right, so we're gonna take a break. We'll talk about this plenty, I'm sure, over the course.
Still
got to
do J.J. McCarthy.
Oh God! But we're gonna listen to Mac, and then we'll be right back after Mac Jones's press conference.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
oh no!
Replacements were shipped with FedEx, and with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
oh no!
Replacements were shipped with FedEx, and with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
oh no!
Replacements were shipped with FedEx, and with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
oh no!
Replacements were shipped with FedEx, and with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
Oh no.
replacements were shipped with FedEx. And with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
Oh no.
replacements were shipped with FedEx. And with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
Oh no.
replacements were shipped with FedEx. And with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on Verizon.
This holiday, trade in any iPhone in any condition for the new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Go to your local Verizon store now. 6 months of Apple One, then $10 per month. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Apple TV 4K and Apple One offers require eligible phone purchase with activation on Unlimited Ultimate. Additional terms and conditions apply. Visit Verizon.com for details.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
Oh no.
replacements were shipped with FedEx. And with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Get in on the action with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the New England Patriots. New customers can download the DraftKings app now and play free for millions in prizes using code PATS. That's code PATS only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
iPhone 15 Pro on
Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. No biscuit, no biscuit.
All right, so we just listened to Mac Jones at his press conference. We had to do the day job for a second. and
Right,
actually,
yeah, we still have to do our
You know,
jobs.
like do the writing part of our job that does exist. So we're going to talk about that for the majority of the last 30 minutes. But I do really want to quickly just wrap up my list here because we obviously took like 6 hours to talk about two guys, which, you know, typical of us. I really like, you know, I like your guy Penix. I do like him.
Yeah.
The injuries worry me. I still... We're going to differ maybe a little bit on the mobility aspect. I don't think it's everything, though.
Well, you haven't even watched Jane Daniels as a runner, so...
Well, I watched the one game on Saturday. I don't want to come across as this guy that needs the quarterback to be mobile. I don't need the quarterback to be mobile, but I need him to be able to evade pressure, move off his spot, you know, do different things like that.
Penix can do that.
All right. I'll take your word for it. You've seen him more than me. My comp, which you're going to hate.
Yeah.
Lefty Geno Smith.
No.
Lefty Geno Smith.
First of all, Geno's more mobile than he is.
But Seahawks Geno. I'm not talking about obvious. Lefty Geno.
You couldn't even get out of Seattle?
Yes, lefty Geno Smith. See, oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like you couldn't even leave Seattle for the comp?
The reason
because
why
they play in the same city?
No, because
it's better than the two comps, I'll give you that.
Geno Smith, the last 2 years, nobody has thrown more big-time throws on deep balls than Geno Smith. Geno Smith drops dimes.
Yeah, he does.
Okay? I don't mind your Phillip Rivers comp either.
I think he's more...
too.
The big-time throws. He can make the big-time throws more than Geno.
Maybe a little bit.
That's
Geno's darn accurate down the field.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's maybe it's just because Geno Smith, and I remember him from the Jets. Like, I don't trust him the way like I trust Penix late in a game. Like, Michael Penix means I guess Phillip Rivers. Well, he didn't lose all those games. The defense did, but I know. I just backed myself into a corner there.
You did.
Penix, I just think there's more. It's not a terrible comp.
Okay, all right.
I still like the Rivers one better though.
More moxie maybe with Penix.
More moxie, and I think there's a little bit more playground in his game.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it.
Not a lot. Like, he's not Caleb Williams, but there's a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last but not least, and
well, we got two more guys.
No. I don't have two more guys.
I love that.
I have one more guy.
So wait, what's the cutoff here? Is this like
my top 5?
Okay.
But there is no sixth guy. I'm gonna just say before I get to Bo Nix, who's number 5.
So are all these guys first round picks?
Like top 50, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I think the first 4 are first round picks. I don't know if I'm there yet with Bo Nix.
I think Penix is a first round pick. I think Daniels is like I could see him going like 33rd, 34th. But
that's fair.
I'll call him a top 40 pick.
I am not and will not and am not taking J.J. McCarthy seriously as an NFL prospect. Do not call in. Do not email in. Do not at me. Don't do any of it about J.J. McCarthy. You know how many interceptions J.J. McCarthy should have had in that first half last week? 4. Like, at least 4. Like, the guy, his decision-making is not NFL caliber. Not only that, I just, there's nothing about his game right now that's NFL caliber. Like, I don't see it. Like, I don't understand. And he's playing on a loaded offense. It's maybe the best team in the nation, and they don't trust him. Like, it's 3rd and 10, and they're handing it off.
Not just that, the offensive coordinator is now the head coach.
They avoid making J.J. McCarthy do things like the plague. Like, they are purposely, actively trying to keep him out of the game. Please, no.
So. Geez, you're actually gonna make me defend J.J. McCarthy a little bit.
No,
I got dragged for 3 weeks ago for saying J.J. McCarthy wasn't a first round pick. I said he's a day 2 pick, and people. So you just really poked the hornet's nest.
Out. OUT.
The trait is his athleticism. He's very athletic. He has good size, like that kind of thing. Which great, whatever.
Which if he goes back to school, and he works on playing quarterback, then maybe he could.
So
get there
that's my thing with J.J. McCarthy. I think if you feel strongly about him one way or the other, you're kidding yourself. The body of work is not there. He doesn't do anything. He throws the ball. It was 22 times a game going into the Ohio State game.
Yeah.
That's got to be less now. It kind of like you talked about Drake May. He hasn't done anything when they've played elite deep. The 2 best defenses they've played are Ohio State and Maryland. They were his 2 worst games. Penn State and Maryland.
Yeah.
We'll see what he does this weekend. I can't imagine it's going to be good.
No.
But unlike Drake May, he didn't tear it up against the bad teams. He great. He hung 46 on Michigan State, the worst team in the Big Ten. Awesome. He's a pure ceiling pick. There is no floor. There is no floor with J.J. McCarthy.
We're in agreements. I don't want to.
Can I give you my comps for J.J. McCarthy?
Sure.
My ceiling for him right now, if he were to come out right now, the best case scenario for him is he becomes Brock Purdy. He is a pure ball delivery quarterback surrounded by the best offense in the league.
Yeah, the easiest job in the NFL.
The best case for him.
Yeah.
His floor is Zach Wilson because there is so much Zach Wilson in his game right now.
I can see the Zach Wilson thing a lot.
I don't. If he comes out, and he should go back to school, and I hope he goes back to school. Also, this is going to piss people off. I have to say it. The 2 games that have been his worst games are the first 2 games they didn't have Connor Stallions on the sideline.
Yeah.
So you're laughing, but like suddenly he's not getting the calls ahead of time, and he's not playing as well. Look,
go back to school, J.J. McCarthy.
He's got to go back to school. If he is in the draft, he is a late day 2. We're going to redshirt this guy for 2 years, like what the Packers did with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy where you have to already have an established quarterback, a guy who's going to be there for another year or 2, playing at a high level, and this is the guy we're going to turn to down the road at some point at
I'm
the
not
end
even
of his
taking
rookie
him on day
contract.
2. You want to take him in the 4th round? Fine.
Okay. He should go back to school.
All right. Really quickly on Bo Nix.
Yeah.
I can't unsee Auburn Bo Nix.
Yeah.
And at some point, that has to matter because, first, maybe Oregon's just coaching him well. Maybe Oregon's just
They are. Dan Lanning's a really good coach.
Maybe Oregon's just getting the best out of him right now. If he ever reverts back to Auburn Bo Nix, it's going to be a disaster.
Auburn Bo Nix was not an NFL quarterback.
Bad.
Really
bad.
So I think Bo Nix is the right pick for a certain team.
Yeah.
I think Bo Nix is the guy you draft when you need a quarterback to come in with the rest of the talent around. Like, the team I look at is the Jets.
Yeah.
Moving on from Zach Wilson, you don't know where Rodgers is at with the Achilles. Even if he's fine, he's only going to play another year or two. You have Garrett Wilson. You're going to build up the offensive line elsewhere. That's the team that should draft Bo Nix. The Niners, if they don't want to pay Brock Purdy at the end of the year, should draft Bo Nix. A team that's starting from scratch, like the Patriots, doesn't need Bo Nix. He is all floor. And look, he's done some nice things at Oregon. I think he sees the field well. I think he gets the ball out well. But
he's got a good arm, and he's a good runner.
He's got a good arm, but not a great arm. He's a good runner. He's not a great runner.
Yeah.
He still has struggled to win on the road in hostile environments. My comp for Bo Nix is Mac Jones.
Oh, I think he's more talented than Mac.
Draft pick Mac Jones. Remember what we all said about Mac? You're going to draft him, and you're going to set it and forget it at quarterback, and you're going to put the pieces around him, and you're going to win because of the pieces around him. He's just going to be kind of driving the bus.
So
that's Bo Nix to me.
My comp for Bo Nix, right now, and when I say this, I'm saying who he became in the NFL, not as a prospect.
Yeah.
I see a little bit of Baker Mayfield.
That's probably his ceiling, is Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
I have another Baker Mayfield comp, but you're going to hate it. I'll get to that in a second.
I have a little bit of Baker Mayfield in there. And what I mean, again, not the prospect, not the number 1 overall pick, but
current Baker Mayfield.
Current Baker Mayfield.
Well, isn't that kind of what Mac's ceiling was? Just a little more athletic?
I don't think Baker Mayfield's more athletic.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Baker
a more athletic version, but it's that same guy. We're like, the Bucs aren't winning because Baker Mayfield is making plays. The Bucs are winning because Baker Mayfield's getting the ball to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that kind of thing. I got to ask you about 2 more guys. I know you want to talk about the Giants. I want to talk about the Giants, but I got to ask you about 2 more guys.
Okay.
And one has been reported to go back to school, kind of soft reported to go back to school. The other one, it hasn't been reported, but his dad said it. Quinn Ewers.
I like some things about Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
I think he's got a little bit of crazy,
which
I kind of like.
Yeah.
You got to be a little bit crazy, and he's got a good arm, big arm, has the tools. Here's my thing on the whole draft.
Yeah.
I am wary this time around of drafting the quarterback that has the loaded supporting cast in college because of what happened with Mac. And you look at Texas, like we talked about Worthy, right?
Yeah.
Like they have great players.
Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Jatavian Sanders. Yeah, that's fair.
It's a great team. It's the same. I kind of feel the same way about J.J. McCarthy, but also just think he stinks. But I feel the same way about him just in terms of what is he really doing? Okay.
Yeah.
And I think with Mac, we have to learn from that when it's not quite no one was throwing to the All-Star cast that Mac Jones was in 2020. That was.
But it's up there. And the Big 12 is really bad this year. I'll give you outside Oklahoma, who he didn't beat. We'll see if he gets another shot in a couple of weeks. Shedeur?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's not. I mean, he's not. I don't think Shedur's coming out. I would be shocked.
I don't think he is. And I think that a lot of things.
Especially because of how bad Drew Aller and Kyle McCord have been, who are supposed to be the top 2 quarterbacks next year. They've both been awful.
I also, with Shedeur, who, if he comes out next year and they still need a quarterback, I'm all. Okay. 100%. Give me Shedeur.
I think it's really hard to envision a world where he's not the QB1 next year, but then again, we said that about Caleb.
I just quickly on Shedeur, though.
Yeah.
You got to talk to Dion. What's Dion's role? Right.
Well, Dion's not leaving as long as Wait, what do you mean?
Just what's? Are
you talking about him replacing Bill?
No, I'm talking about what is his? How involved is Dion gonna be with Shedeur in the NFL?
He's gonna be coaching. He's gonna be.
I'm not necessarily saying it's even
that involved.
I'm not necessarily saying it's even a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I just feel like Dion that you're gonna when you draft Shedeur, you're drafting Dion.
But
too.
So I think there's a chance Dion, because if the team's picking first overall, they probably need a new head coach. I think Dion's going to try to go coach wherever Shedeur ends up.
Yeah, that I'm not so interested in.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
The more, honestly, I know Dion, Prime, all that.
Yeah.
The relationship I'm more interested with Shedeur Sanders is he's very close with Tom Brady.
Right.
And that element of it, if he came here, would be outstanding. I got to throw out a couple more names, day 3 guys, just real quick. Carson Beck from Georgia.
Yeah.
Wanted to hate him. You talk about talent around him. I don't know how much Georgia you've watched. You'll watch him, I'm sure, in the playoff.
Yeah.
Watch Carson Beck a little bit for me.
Okay.
He's been kind of fun. Kind of if they're going to wait for day 3, if they're going to do the Kirk Cousins thing, take a second quarterback. I do like what I've seen from him. I'm very excited to see how you're going to feel about Joe Milton. I've told you about Joe Milton.
I've seen a little bit of Joe Milton.
Bazooka Joe. If you need the ball thrown 85 yards, he'll throw it 85 yards. If you need the ball thrown 5 yards, he'll throw it 85 yards.
He does have a bazooka.
I like.
All right, quickly.
All right,
rapid
2 more.
Fire.
I like DJ Uyunglele from Oregon State. He's fallen off. I said I had a Baker comp for you.
Yeah.
This is if they are going to UDFA. Whoop.
He's so excited.
UDFA, the Kirk Cousins thing. Andrew Peasley from Wyoming.
Oh my God!
Is going to be the best undrafted quarterback in this class.
We didn't need to go this deep.
We did.
We didn't need to go.
I love me some Andrew.
All right,
Peasley.
let's take these calls and let's talk about the Giants for 5 minutes. John is in Louisiana. If you're still holding on, that was a long time. Eldred is in North Carolina. What's up, Eldred?
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing? Hey, Alex, Evan, and Alex.
Yep.
Your comp on Penix is wrong.
Okay.
I'm going to go an old school one, and that's Steve Young.
Oh.
He's a little mobile.
I'm not old enough for that, but I agree.
But Steve can throw short and long, but he ain't accurate as Penix is. And like I said, I saw that game last Saturday in the rain, in the wind, and this receiver let him down a lot, and he's hitting them while they fully covered, right in the hands and in the face mask. So he would be my pick.
All right.
And one more thing, and I'll let you go. I listened to your show from the other day, and that Will person, Will, love you as a fan too, but I'm going to say this, and everybody can get mad if you want to. Bill didn't become the greatest coach till he had the greatest player. And like I said, that's NFL fact. 100-game coach before he got Tom Brady, 48 and 52. And 6 of those he won with Drew. So I'll let that go at that, and y'all have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks,
right,
Eldred.
bye-bye.
Great call.
Good call.
Great call.
That's just because he likes Penix.
Compares Penix. No, Andy defended me against that caller last week.
Penix to Steve Young. I mean, I've only ever seen
it's
NFL
a bit
film
bold.
Steve Young. Like I didn't watch Steve Young.
Yeah,
Shocker.
I'm going with my lifetime here. But.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we heard from Mac Jones this morning.
Yeah.
He said that he hopes to be the starter. That's I think what he was saying.
Yeah.
That he's planning on starting,
which is what he should be doing. That's the right approach.
That's the mindset. Here's my take on this, and I wrote about this, in game plan this week. My game preview about the Giants. I think Mac Jones is still the best quarterback on this team. I think he still gives you the best chance to win. That's not saying he's the quarterback of the future, right? Like, I'm not saying that he's still the answer for this team long term. I still think he's the best quarterback on the current Patriots roster. With that being said, I do think that he would benefit from a mental break. I do. And I don't think that this is a situation where on Sunday they should start Bailey Zappi and in the last 7 games of the year are Bailey Zappi, right? I think that Bailey Zappi gets this start on Sunday and then they go back to Mac. And maybe, and I think that this is part of the reason why Bill played it coy yesterday, maybe they are hoping that the bye week was enough.
Yeah.
And that was enough to just kind of reset the old mental internal clock, whatever you want to call it, for Mac Jones. But and they want to see it in practice and like see if maybe he looks a little bit more comfortable and looks a little bit more like himself in practice. But I don't think that they bought that at a little bit early in the season when they lost to the Cowboys and Saints. People asked like mental reset, would he benefit from that? And I think both Bills, O'Brien and Belichick, said it's the NFL. We don't have time for that. Like, it's the NFL. Right. You're a professional football player. If your number's called, you play. I just think that for the rest of this season, they're risking throwing him out there and having him completely whatever's left of Mac Jones as a starting quarterback in the NFL, if they just keep on throwing him out there to have him do what he did in Germany, it's gone forever for him. And for his career, I think it might be the best thing for him to take a seat, hold the clipboard for a couple weeks, and then we'll come back to you. Like, it's not forever, but we will come back to you. But I think he would benefit from the mental reset. They're in a tough spot. They don't have a good quarterback on the team right now. With Mac in his current mental state, they don't have a good quarterback. That's just plain and simple. But the Falcons just did this with Desmond Ridder. We'll see if it ends up working at all. But Taylor Heineke started the last 2 games. They're going back to Desmond Ridder now. That was always the plan, was to eventually get back to Desmond Ridder. I think that the Patriots should take a similar approach.
It's just so tough because of the way they pulled him in Germany.
Yeah.
And the message that sends. So,
and I think that's why you start Zappy this week, because it's something different, right? And you are saying, okay, we are, I don't want to use the word punishing, but we are holding him accountable for how he played.
The question is, do they still believe there's a chance he's the long-term answer? And we don't know. We don't know. And obviously they might not know. And who's they? Bill might feel one way. Robert might feel another. If Robert already knows that Bill's done, then you kind of have to know that the next coach and next GM are going to want to bring in their own quarterback regardless of what Mac does. So that's the big unknown, is how do they feel about Mac Jones long term. I think it's just so hard to try to build a guy up internally and externally as your franchise quarterback when you handle Mac Jones the way he's been handled this year, the benchings that have happened, and then pulling him as the starter. Look, I know, like Tua, right? Tua was pulled. But that was different. I think that team really was rallying around Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was winning them games. It's just, you don't usually see franchise quarterbacks go through this, especially early in their careers. So if they're done with Mac Jones, then I think what you're saying makes sense. Sit him for a little bit, then play him, see if he plays well down the stretch, and now he might have some trade value. If they still believe he's the franchise, I almost feel like you kind of got to let him just play through this and work through this. Because once you go away from him, forget the fans. How do you pitch to the guys in the locker room? Like, yeah, that guy we just benched, that's our future. That's the future of the team. That's the guy we want you all to rally around.
I guess my approach is almost middling it from those things, because
well, and that's it. We don't know, so you can't.
I don't think that you can confidently say he's your franchise quarterback at this point.
You can't.
You can't do that. But reality is that you do have team control on him, at least for one more year. He's under contract at a discounted rate on the rookie deal. And if we just spent 45 minutes on quarterbacks in the middle of November, which stinks, but if you are thinking of drafting one of these quarterbacks, although I don't necessarily subscribe that Mac Jones is the right guy to keep here to maybe start the first 4 to 6 weeks, and he's not the right guy for that. And I agree with you 100%. Yeah. But there's still a world, especially, and I hate this world, but there's still a world, especially if Bill's the coach, where it's a day 2 quarterback pick, and it's somebody like a Bo Nix. It's somebody that probably isn't going to be ready right away and is still...
The Jalen Hurts thing, what the Eagles did with Carson Wentz.
Right. Yeah. And I think that there is a world that you come back to training camp next summer, and I don't want to use the word need Mac Jones, but you need a Mac Jones.
He's the bridge guy. Well, you're going to need a bridge guy, and he's already here, and he's affordable.
And so in all those aspects, I think that it behooves the Patriots to keep in mind that you don't want to completely break this player.
Right.
Whether you're confident in him as a future or not, you don't want him to be completely broken where he can't be that bridge guy.
And this goes back to a lot of what I've said about how they've handled Mac Jones. You shouldn't be in the business of breaking players.
Right.
And it's almost felt at times like they want to be, like they want to see how far they can push guys, and I get it. You want tough players, and you got to test toughness, and they run the hill and all that. But
tough teams cover kicks, Alex.
You don't want to be known as the team that breaks guys.
That's why I really feel strongly that sitting him for at least a week and allowing him to just watch and to not have the pressure of being the quarterback And especially, and this is the one thing I wanted to mention about I had a whole thing about Dable, but we don't have time for it. I think with Dable, the one thing I want to mention about the Giants, stay on topic here.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to mention about the Giants, if they put Mac Jones out there on Sunday, Wink Martindale is going to send the house at him for 4 straight quarters.
Yeah.
He is going to blitz the crap out of him, and he's going to get his brains beat in. And I don't mean this like, oh, just do it to Bailey Zappi because who gives an F? Like, I don't mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Bailey Zappi. But when you already have a quarterback that's seeing ghosts, when you already have a quarterback that's throwing off his back foot, when you already have a quarterback that is throwing terrible interceptions because of his mechanics and he's broken and he's got the yips, like putting him out there against Wink Martindale is not a good recipe. Like, he's going to send pressure after pressure after pressure at him, and by the second half, he's going to be a pile of mud. And Zappi, at least, maybe it's ignorance is bliss for Zappi, but he's at least not.
He's not sped up.
Yeah, he's not broken at that respect. So I think in terms of the timing of it, coming off the bye week, you had the extra practice last week to give Bailey Zappi some first team reps. The matchup with Wink Martindale, a lot of this is just like, this is just a bad spot for Mac Jones. Yeah. It's just a bad spot for him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that there's a chance you break him by sitting him too.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, how does he command the locker room? How does he do some of that stuff you need the starting quarterback to do when you've really muddied those waters?
That's fair. All right, really quickly on Dable. I had this take when they fired Josh McDaniels in Vegas, and it's not a take. Like, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
About the Patriots offensive system.
Yeah.
And the whole Earnhardt Perkins Patriots offense. And we have Josh McDaniels fired midseason.
Yeah.
The Patriots right now are bottom 5 in the league in most statistical categories offensively.
Yeah.
The New York Giants are bottom 5 in the league in most statistical categories offensively. So the Giants had injuries at quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think Daniel Jones is good anyways, but he's better than Paisan
Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito.
Yeah. In general, I just wonder about the system. I do. I think with this system, the one thing about the Patriots offense is that it's predicated on consistent, detailed execution. There's not a whole, like the Shanahan tree, the Eagles tree, those guys are just like, we're just going to get people into space and we're going to run.
We're just going to let athletes be athletes.
Right. This system is about, you run a 6-yard route, I run a 12-yard route, I break it this way, you break it that way, quarterback hits it here, and everything has to line up. And I just wonder if there's only so many players on planet Earth that can do that consistently time and time again. And I do think that in some ways the practice time is a factor here, that there's less practice time to practice these types of things. I look at Dable and I give him the benefit of the doubt because he did have, they went 9-7-1 last year with the healthy Daniel Jones, and it was a much better offense last year. And obviously we saw what he did with Josh Allen. So I think that if you give Dable the pieces, he's still a really good offensive coach, and I give him that benefit of the doubt. But I do worry about the system in general.
Yeah, I think kind of to your point, I think the upside of the system is so high.
Yeah.
Because you can be the best defense in the league. If it's working perfectly, you can't stop it. The concepts behind it are all undefendable.
Yeah.
It's so hard to execute it consistently at that level. And as college teams move further and further away from those kind of concepts, it's really hard to find the players who can play it. Right? When you had number 12 here, you knew it was going to always be executed at a high level, and that was a big part of it. It's tough to run with a rookie quarterback, with rookie receivers, with guys that you kind of it's tough because I almost feel like you can't learn it in process.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to do it. And that's just not the way the game works anymore. And to your point, lack of practice time makes that process a lot harder. So it was funny. I was asked this on Sunday by Jim Louth. We were talking about this on Sports Up Sunday Kickoff, and he said he thinks that the offense is going extinct.
Yeah.
And I don't think the offensive system itself should go extinct because I think in theory the system still works. The players that you need to run it, that kind of player, may be going extinct, and that is ultimately what will run the offense out of the league. I think if you had the players to run it, coaches would run it.
Right.
I think you might be running into a spot where they're just the players to run it aren't available.
Yeah.
And it's splitting hairs. At a certain point, it might be the same thing.
We have to wrap, but I just look at the Giants. they were able to put it together against the Commanders offensively, right? And they had a good offensive game against the Commanders. The Patriots had a good offensive game against Buffalo. But in order to, this system is so detailed and it's so execution based that in order to execute that for 17 games a season and win at a high level like that, you need to have incredible players that are built for that sort of thing. And I do wonder if maybe we're at the end of the rope, like you kind of mentioned with the development and all that. All right, that's going to do it for us here. We got PU coming up next here at noon, so hang tight. We'll be right there with Unfiltered. And next week, I promise we'll talk more actual Patriots. It's a bye week. We had no game to talk about, so that's why we were really heavy on non-Patriots here today. But we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Oh, actually Thursday, back to Thursday next week, but same time, and we'll talk Patriots then. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.
Thank you.